Hello everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Juliet here. In today's video guys, I am going to be working on this beautiful crop top. Okay, it's a simple and basic crop top. You only need your basic bodice pattern and basic sleeves pattern. That's all. That is all, and you are good to go. Okay, so this video is something that I hope you find comprehensive. I feel like the sewing or the DIY or this top is pretty simple and straightforward. So guys, let's get this party started, shall we?
On my pattern paper, I am going to draw out a straight line which is going to act as my starting point, and also that straight line is my shoulder point. From that shoulder point, I am going to mark the length of my top. This is a crop top, so I am using 17 or 16. You can use 16, you can use 17, whichever length it is that you desire. Now I am going to mark my neck width. You can decide to make yours a V-neck, whichever one you desire, but this is a round neck. So the width of the neck I am using is actually 3 inches. That's what I use for mine. So I am just cross-checking to make sure it is actually correct. For the length, I used 3.5, which actually ended up being too small for the person I was making it up for, but it looked really good on me. And I'm going to use my curve ruler to connect the curves together. From that straight line, I am going to mark half of my shoulder measurement plus half an inch for ease. Now this is not seam allowance, this is ease, because this is a boxy top and we want it to be loose and not fitted. So from that point, I am going to go down to mark 1 inch to make my shoulder slope, because obviously our shoulder is not straight, and I am going to connect those points to where the neckline is. Now I am going to mark out my armhole depth measurement plus half an inch for ease. Remember guys, this is a boxy crop top. We don't want it slimmed out to our body. So now that I have gotten my armhole depth measurement on the paper, I am going to roll it out horizontally, and that's going to be our chest line. So I am just making it, or making sure that I have the proper measurements from the chest line to the hem, because I want to have a straight line. So now I am going to connect the shoulder slope to where I have the armhole depth measurements. On the chest line, I am going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 plus half of an inch for ease. I hope you guys are following. Please, if there's anything you don't understand, feel free to leave me a comment so that I can explain more for you to understand. So on the chest line again, I am marking my bust circumference plus half of an inch for ease, and the same measurement I have on my chest line, I am going to do that also on the hem line, because obviously it is a box shape top and I am going to connect it, but you can decide to slant yours. So now what I am doing on the armhole, in order to get our curve, I am going to mark out the middle of that armhole depth measurement that we rolled out. and I am going to curve it to the edge of the chest line. Pretty simple, right? You can do this by hand if you don't have a curve ruler, by the way. So I have added my neckline, my back neckline to the pattern, and I used 1 inch. You can decide to use 1.5, 2 inch. It is your choice, okay? And I also marked 1/2 inch sewing allowance all around, and I am going to cut it out. I am going to use this pattern to cut out the back and the front. Okay, so I'm adding the seam allowance to the front so I know what I am cutting and what I am not cutting. This is the pattern I am going to use for the front and back, like I said earlier, and for the back I am just going to add 2 inches for zipper allowance. I hope you guys understand. And also I am using a detachable zipper for this project. For my sleeve, I am simply going to roll out the upper arm circumference by the length of my sleeve. I don't know if you guys understand, but I also need you guys to take note of the armhole length. I don't know if you guys understand that, but as you can see, I am not measuring the seam allowance. I am measuring the armhole length or the curve that we measured initially. So after doing that, I am going to note that down because we need that measurement, or we are going to need that measurement later on. So guys, this is my sleeve length. For the sleeve length I used 7 inches. So my sleeve length is 7 and my upper arm circumference is already marked out to make the rectangle for this top. So from the top of my sleeve, that is the top of my sleeve, and the other side is going to be the down part, the end part of my sleeve. So from the top, I am going to mark 4 inches down. After I mark 4 inches down, I am simply going to use a pencil. I actually did that off camera. I first used a pencil to trace out the shape of a sleeve. We know how the shape of a sleeve looks like. It has this curve. It's not straight, it has a curve. So from that point where I marked 4 inches to the corner of the top part of the sleeve, I am going to roll out a straight line, and I am going to make my curve. I actually did this off camera. I first used a pencil to trace out or to make a curve. We all know how the sleeve curve looks like. It's not straight, it actually has a curve, and you want to make sure that the length of that curve, right, the length of the curve and the length of the armhole curve that we made on the top pattern is the same thing. I don't know if you guys understand. So the point, that point where I asked us to note down the length of that curve and the length of the curve you have on the sleeve should be the same thing. So this is me marking 1/2 inch from the middle point of that straight line that we just drew in order for us to just get the curve. So this is the curve, guys. Can you see the point where I marked 1/2 inch? So I used a pencil just to mark the curve, and remember guys, we are doing this on fold, and I added 1/2 inch all around. So because my fabric is a combination of smaller fabric in squares, I have decided to use a lining for all the pieces. So what I am going to do now is that I am going to attach the main fabric to the lining fabric, right sides touching each other. So I am going to sew everywhere except for the shoulder slope and the armhole curve.
So after sewing, I turned all my pieces to the right side and I gave it a good press just to make everything crisp and clean. And also at the neckline, you want to make sure you notch the neckline curve in order to make it smoother. So I am going to place my front bodice on the table and I am going to bring both sides of my back bodice on top of my front bodice, right sides touching each other, and I am going to bring the back lining, which is the front lining, that is the lining that is on top of the table. I am going to bring it over and on top of the back lining, so the front lining and the back lining touches, and I am going to sew them together. So what this is going to do is going to make sure that our shoulder point is connected neatly. I don't know if you guys understand, but I'm going to repeat that again. So again, front bodice on top of the table, right sides touching with back bodice. Bring the bottom lining, which is the front bodice lining, over and on top of the back lining, which is the one facing me. Connect all the seams together and sew. So this is what I was talking about, having a neat finishing. It just makes the job sweeter, right? When you open the back of the project you're working on and you see that even the lining is neat, right? So after doing that, I am going to connect the sleeves to the main top. So what I'm doing now is marking out the middle of my sleeve in order for me to connect it to the main body seamlessly. Unfortunately, at this point, my sewing machine started acting funny, so I had to take it to a local tailor's shop in order for them to completely stop for me while I work on my sewing machine. So now I have attached my sleeve. So I am going to sew the rest of the sleeve and the side seam in one straight stitch. And thankfully the tailor was understanding enough for me to film the process. I had to ask her to stop so I can film some things, and also I asked her to wear the top for me in order to remember how many inches I left for my zipper allowance. Remember that on the bodice we drew, on the pattern we drew, we didn't add zipper allowance, so on the fabric I added about 2-inch zipper allowance. It's time for me to add my detachable zipper. Okay, so if you don't know how to add a detachable zipper, I feel like this video is, or this process is self-explanatory enough. So right side of the zipper facing right side of the top. After sewing on one side, we are going to do the same to the other side. Right side of the zipper touching the right side of the top. You want to make sure that the length of the zipper on both sides of the top is the same. So after adding the zipper, all we have to do now is finish it up, and what we are going to do next is to fold the zipper excess in order to hide that excess of the zipper.
So ladies and gentlemen, I hope this video is self-explanatory enough. I hope I have been able to explain it in a way that you understand. If there is anything you don't understand, feel free to leave me a comment so that I can explain more on it. And also, do not forget to like and subscribe if you have not already. That is a way of supporting the channel. Thank you for watching. So here is the final result of the top. This top was not originally for me. It is for my sister, who is like 2 times my size or 3 times my size, but the neck curve ended up too high for her, so I decided to keep it for myself. But what do you think, guys?